All right, today's video is about how to not be a failure in school. Yesterday, I was talking about how to not be a failure in life and using your failures and the things that you've learned to move further and to do better the next time. If you didn't see that and would like to, go onto my channel and look in the archives. But today is specifically about school. And while it's similar to what we talked about yesterday, there's a few tweaks. So I'm just going to go bullet point by bullet point through this because if you are a student, you don't have a lot of time for chit chat. Number one, evaluate what went wrong. So when you're in school, if you have an assignment or a test or a quiz that you didn't do as well as you would like, evaluate what went wrong. Did you have nerves or emotions? Did you have a lack of sufficient prep time? Did you not study as long as you really needed to? It doesn't matter if it was because you were overcommitted or things. You deal with those whys later. But was it because you simply did not give the amount of time necessary? Because if so, you know that you need to give more time to it, and there might be some priorities that you need to shift around. Did you prepare or prep on the wrong material? I had that happen with one of my daughters back when she was in the 9th grade. She was studying like crazy for these tests. All this material, it was one of those kind of omnibus type of things where they study history and art and religion and all these things all together. And she was studying like crazy and she just could not get it down. And after her second really bad lesson, I met with the teacher and she was going to meet with him as well, but I was meeting with him first. And he said, basically, this is what I study on, I test on is these materials here. And she's just not well, she didn't realize that essentially the outlines and classwork and things like that was the key to studying. So she was studying and trying to learn the whole entire book. Once she started doing this, she started getting high 90s and hundreds on her tests and quizzes. So it completely revolutionized the way she prepared for her lessons and her outcomes. It could be something as simple as that. You put a lot of time, but time on the wrong thing. Are you memorizing instead of mastering? There are some things like dates and math equations you need to just simply memorize the formulas. But then continuing that, you need to have mastery. You need to understand in history, not just the date something happened, but the significance of that date. What other things were happening around at that time, whether in that place or in other places that influence the outcome of what happened. That's mastery in history. Mastery in math is not only knowing equations, but understanding when to use those equations, why you're using those equations, the variables in those equations, and what other equations you can plug in to find other unknowns. Can you take this equation, which solves for C, and plug it in here where C exists to solve a completely different equation when you don't know what C is? Those kind of things. So memorizing instead of mastery. And this gets more important the further you go in your academics. Your memorization no longer helps you. You need to then know how things work together and how to explain them. Next thing, decide what changes you need to make. So first you evaluate what went wrong. Next, you decide what changes you need to make in your study and preparation process. So compare your study style to the question types asked. Second, consider the material studied versus what was tested. Did you just test, like I said before, the wrong things? Or was it the way, were you doing flashcards where maybe an outline would have been better? And I'll talk about that in a second. I'll do it right now. Number 3, adjust your study methods and systems. So flashcards are great for studying facts. Long answers are great for studying concepts. Again, writing it out. Don't type it up. Remember what I told you before in one of my videos. If you don't know what it is, go back to my channel and look. Why do I keep telling you to write everything down? There is a connection between your hand and your brain that impacts your learning. So long answers, write the concepts. Visuals and flowcharts for impact and implications. Like I was just saying, if you're trying to figure out history, having a timeline and then showing what was happening in different countries during those time frames. This is particularly true like if you're studying war or certain political intrigue or dynasties or Viking invasions into England or things like that, where all these names and crazy stuff, having that visual, writing it out and seeing how all these things happened and what the impact was will help you to remember how things are interconnected, whereas just memorizing straight dates won't. Number 4, meet with the instructor, teacher, professor, whoever. Tell them how you prepared. Tell them the changes that you plan to make. Ask them for input on how to better take notes and study for their class. They may have an insight in how to best study for their, yes, some professors will say just know everything, but they may suggest, okay, using the PowerPoints as a foundation, or using the book as a foundation, Last, ask them for help with mnemonics or other things that are specific to their field or their topic. So how not to be a failure in school, evaluate what went wrong, decide what changes you need to make, adjust your study methods and systems, and meet with the instructor. I encourage you, if there were any of these 4 things that you don't remember very well what I said, click back on them. Down below, I have the timestamps for you. You can jump right to that section where I talk, and then I break down in each of those sections what that means. So don't waste your time rewatching the video 7 times. Go to those specific areas where you feel like you need the most help, and click on that to see how to master that particular area so you can do better on the next test. I would love to see your questions and comments below, and I will address them. This is one area I love. I love study skills. My kids, I actually wrote a book on study skills. So if you have questions, please put them below, and I will see you in the next video. Happy studying.